So let's start with the webinar. Today it's me, Thilo, and my colleague Julian, who invited you to the webinar, and we will talk about how to analyze Instagram stories and how to do this also with Quintly, because as some of you might already know, we just recently released a new feature which makes it now possible to also track and analyze your previous expired Instagram stories. But before we come to that, I just want to let you know that at the end of this webinar, there is going to be a Q&A, and so you can ask some questions, and here in the GoToWebinar tab, actually you can enter some questions, and we will then just read them out at the end as they come in. So if anything is unclear or if anything doesn't work, also in between, just feel free to ask questions however you like. And to get us started a little with the topic, I'm just going to give a little introduction on what we want to talk about today. And I guess most of you guys, as you entered the webinar, you use Instagram stories for your marketing already. And this is actually quite a good idea because the adoption of the feature, and I think when it came out like 1.5 years or 2 years already now before it came out. And today already we have 4 million daily users, which is quite a high number. And some more research has also shown that Instagram stories are very engaging and thus really pay off for brands to use. And this is why basically nobody really should miss out on this. And obviously, like always, there are some ways to assess the performance of your Instagram stories just with all your other channels and accounts. And of course, it makes also sense to do this to validate your goals and your social media marketing. And Julian will now show you first, or give a little overview first about some key numbers that you get for the Instagram stories, and how you can look at them basically first in the app itself.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Thilo, for the introduction. So yes, let's get started with my part. Instagram Story Analytics, swipe up. Why does it why is it called swipe up? Because when you access Instagram stories on your mobile and you just swipe up, you get the first glimpse of data, right? So therefore you don't need Quintly, therefore you don't need anything else. You just need your mobile and the Instagram account, and you swipe up and you see the basic insights, right? And this is what I want to show you now, and just get through the metrics, through the data points you can see. Yeah, first off, very important to know is Instagram stories and the insights, so getting all the numbers such as reach, impressions, and back taps and forward taps are insights data, meaning to say you need insights access to that. So we can do it, could do that for Quintly, for example. You could do that for your own brand, or if the agency gave you if you're an agency and the brand gave you insights access, you can do that as well. Now in this example, we just took a side project of mine, a travel and surf blog, a small side project on Instagram. Yeah, so I can share some numbers with you and show you some actual results of Instagram stories. So let's start off with the left one, the interactions taken. Pretty insightful metric, pretty insightful numbers here. The first one is sticker taps, where we link to a hotel which we liked, for example. This is an interesting number for brands or for influencers that work with brands together, or just to analyze how effective your story was. In this case, it was very early or very shortly after we posted the story, so just 2 sticker taps. But if it's a bit more, it's like nice perhaps to share it with the brand you work together with, or the brand you work for. Then in the discover area here, where we see reach is 257 people reached at this time when I swiped up in the story to see the analytics. and that brought us 303 impressions. Important, reach is always lower than reach. Reach is always lower than impressions because it's a unique value. Then we continue to the navigation area, pretty insightful as well. You have back taps, which means people really like the story beforehand. They wanted to see it again or the video and want to see more info on that. Forward taps is like just people clicking on the right edge of their mobile, and then they jump to the next story, which is not a very negative thing in my opinion, as people have always the thumb lying there to see more and pictures faster after each other than having 15 seconds time. Next story is not ideal, I would say, because our story wasn't entertaining enough that people stayed there, so they swiped to the right and wanted to see the next story or the next Instagram channel profile and exited. Basically, just means you closed the app. Could be that you just arrived at the train station where you actually wanted to get off the train. On the right hand side, you see slightly different numbers because we didn't have a sticker tab on the Instagram story. We're analyzed here. Here we see replies. Replies. No, then we saw the next slide. Replies here means people just interacted with the story, ask us, for example, where is that, by the way? Oh, that looks cool. Or what Thilo just said. So people like to interact with stories. Little tip here on the side: ask questions, use the polls, use the question tabs within Instagram to make people interact. A lot of interesting stuff happened there for us already. Brands interacted with us. For Quintly, a lot of people like former interns said, "Oh, cool, you're there, guys." So definitely ask questions to your audience. A last screenshot, which I want to show you as well, is when you click not on the bar chart, basically on the top left, but you click on the small eye icon. So meaning to say people who actually viewed, and there you see all the individual people, which we blurred here, the names. But then important is the hashtag here. That's another tip which I want to show you as well, or share with you as well, is try to use hashtags here and there where they make sense, because they really can give you additional viewers, additional reach, or whatever you want to position yourself in. And that's always a trial and error thing, because we ourselves tried it a bit with backpacks, or whatever. That didn't work, and then with a bit of trial and error, we saw backpacking actually is the one which gives a lot of viewers within a short time, and helps you to reach new people, basically. Now we have a look how that all looks within Quintly. Tito will show you around our new features, and yes, and after that we will have the Q&A.
Thanks, Julian, for that. I guess that was already a nice overview of all the data points that we have available there. And of course, if you imagine that you are, for example, a large international brand or a media company with lots of individual channels on Instagram for different formats or actors or hosts, you might also want to benchmark many different accounts and many different stories. And so if you would have to look at them all by themselves on the phone, that would become a bit of a tedious task. So you can look at everything of this now also within Quintly, and I'm just gonna switch quickly over to the tool. And I have prepared for you guys a small dashboard that shows basically all the new metrics that we have for Instagram stories now, and that also support historic data or historical data for stories that have expired. Just a little hint, if you're going to look at the tool as an existing user, if you have already authenticated your Instagram profiles for Insights access, we will have started to collect the data for you around the last week, beginning of last week, and so since then now you should already see some data for your accounts if you were already authenticated. If not, you can do it right now and then see it starting from that point of time. And so, as you might know from the other networks, for basically every social platform, we offer a key metrics table that tries to get you in a table overview, all the central and very basic data points that you might have first glance at. And here I chose our Instagram account, which is still a little small, but it has some data, so it should be sufficient for showing you around. And so within this table, you get a overview of lots of the points that, or data points that Julian already showed you. So you see how many stories you had in total, you get your reach per story on average, couple of averages there, actually your replies, your impressions, and also if I scroll over here a bit, you can also see total numbers for impressions and exits and engagements. And if you actually enter a couple of more profiles with Instagram stories to your group for the analysis, they all going to show up here, and then you can also compare them and see who did the most stories, who got the best interaction rate, and these things. So this is actually a pretty good place to benchmark your Instagram accounts if you run stories on different profiles, basically. And moving on from this, which goes a bit more into the specific stories, is our stories table. And basically before we already had this in the tool, but it was called active stories table because back until last week, it was only possible to look at current running stories because of some API limitations. But now with our new mechanism to store the data, you will see all the stories since you authenticated your profile. And so this on a per story or per each part of the story, it's going to show you main information like the type it was, image or video, how many people you reached, how many impressions you got, and in this way, for example, you can pretty easily find out for a specific point or data frame, time frame, like here from October 14th to October 30th. You can then, for example, sort by reach, for example, and see the story that got you the most reached users. And if you click on here, basically also you can get right to the story that you want to see. That was, I think, a little story that Julian made when we were in Dublin 2 weeks before.
Exactly, last night at SaaStock.
Yeah, that was fun. Good pubs there. And so this table is going to give you an overview of the performance of individual stories. And but then the cool thing is that basically now you can not only, as I said, look at the currently active stories, but also you can look into the past and analyze your previous expired stories. And there, to have an analysis over time, we created this key metrics line chart for stories. And here you can see the exits, the impressions, the reach, and the replies for a profile that you analyze. And as you can see with the little dates down here, you can analyze the performance over time and see if you do a better job than before, or maybe also not so well, depending on the case. And basically now, when as longer as you have your insights tracked and authenticated within Quintly, you will of course see more and more and more data, and so you can show the performance not only over days but also over weeks and over months. And another metric that we have that we offer right now is for tabs, so tabs back and tabs forward, and you can also track them over time. And as, for example, Julian has already said, here with the tabs back, if they are quite high, this might be an indicator that people want to actually go back and look at the previous part of the story again. maybe because they found it really interesting. And when they tap forward, of course, it could be a sign that maybe you posted too much, or maybe people didn't find it interesting enough. But as Julian said, sometimes people are just eager to click, 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 and click on from picture to picture. And sometimes it's actually a quite nice idea to put in a video every now and then, because it seems like people then are a bit more inclined to stay longer. And basically, yeah, this was the overview of the first metrics that we have in the tool so far for Instagram stories, and also for the analysis of historical data. And the nice thing is, here within this dashboard I created for this webinar, I only included the metrics for the stories, but of course, as always, you can totally compare these with your other regular Instagram metrics, and get a comprehensive overview of the performance of your channels. And of course, as I said, you can have all your profiles in here, so it's no jumping around between individual accounts in the Instagram app to get all these data. But from now on, you can all conveniently analyze this within Quintly on your desktop and see everything at once, and also export everything at once, do your reports for Instagram stories. So hopefully this is going to make your life a lot easier in the future.
Exactly. Yeah, cool. Thanks for showing us around, Thilo. So if you have any questions, now would be the time to ask. Of course, you can reach out to us afterwards on Twitter, the bubble here, within the tool, on the website, write us an email or whatever. But if you have any questions regarding the new feature or regarding Instagram stories, now would be the time, basically. Yeah, but actually, I thought about one important, one cool thing what we could do as well ourselves is you could like just have a look at the replies, for example, and then see, oh, okay, cool. The 22nd of October, we got a higher number of replies than usual. That could be interesting to have a look at, and then play around with like Instagram stories and go aim for a high number of replies this day.
Yeah.
And see, oh, okay, cool, that worked. Or let's play around, as I said before, with the hashtag. Which hashtag gives us a higher reach, and do people then also, does it mean higher reach equals more replies? We don't know. So I think it's always just a matter of testing and trial and error.
And one cool thing I actually forgot is, of course, as always, you can jump into the metrics builder and build your own metrics. All the data points of Instagram stories that we have, they're going to be available, and you can build your own metrics and do some crazy calculations, whatever you like.
Okay, cool. So there's the first question actually from Tobias. Thanks, Tobias, for asking the question and saying that it was a great introduction. That's cool. How long do you store the data? Is there a time limit? So to answer the question, first of all, there's no time limit. I wouldn't know of. Thilo, would you know of a time limit?
No, there shouldn't be any time limits, no.
Yeah, that's the simple answer. There's no time limit. So we first of all store everything. I think there are no limitations yet from the Instagram API.
Yeah, and one more point maybe. As you know, you could the data vanishes also through the Instagram API. So unfortunately, there's not the easy way that you can always get this data through the API. So we have to save it in our databases for you. So what we did, to give you a little background how the feature works, is we built some workers that basically, for all the Instagram profiles that you've added and that you have authenticated for in-size access, so where you have the admin rights, or where somebody who works with you has authenticated for you, we will collect the data. But because the stories could expire all the time, because sometimes if you post it in the morning, it's gonna expire the next morning. If you post it in the evening, it's gonna expire in the next evening. So what we basically do is every half hour we refresh the data of the stories that you've posted and gather the data. So at the end, when it expires, we get I would say, near final number of the overall performance of the story. So we try to get as close to have like a really short time frame for refreshing there. So every half hour to get the most current data and get you really exact results.
Exactly. So, and then just for you as a heads up as well, these are the first 4 metrics, right? That
Yep.
doesn't mean that we're not working on further metrics.
Yep.
For now, this is like, I think, where we are, like the product team sit together, what we can get now to launch the feature. But yeah, in the future, we will work on more metrics, showing you more numbers, and trying to get like everything possible what we get with the Instagram API. Yeah, I think there right now are no more questions. But yeah, remember, if you have any questions, just reach out to us, let us know. Yeah, so far so good, I would say. Right?
Yes, yep. So yeah, as I said, if you're a Quintly user already, just authenticate your profiles if you haven't done it yet, and you can actually start playing around with the feature right now. And it's included in all plans, and yeah, you can just go ahead and after some time passes, you will be able to build up a very nice set of historic data on your stories and be able to do an insightful analysis over time. All right.
Thanks very much for joining, guys. Have a great day.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.